Howdy, welcome back. We're going to do spending plan part 3. Where's my fingers? Right there, part 3 right now. And if you're watching this, that means that you did part 1 and part 2. That was a lot of work, a lot of time. And so I want to give a shout out to you and say good job. That was a lot of work. You put together a spending plan, what you thought you would spend in a month, what you would need to spend in a month, and then you have been tracking, hopefully for 3 months is a good picture, but I don't want you to delay making your spending plan if you haven't tracked for 3 months. But as a side note, you will need to go through and compare your tracking to your spending plan often, and we'll talk about that. You're going to do it monthly at the beginning, and then eventually you're going to get really, really good at it and good at knowing exactly what you spend, and then you can change it to a quarterly thing. So that work is not over, but the hard part is over because you had a lot of data to collect and to compare. And so I commend you for doing that and for sticking with it. That's not easy, and for some people it's not fun, but you did it. So part 3, you have compared now your spending plan to your tracked expenses. You have identified areas that you were pretty accurate on as far as your spending plan coinciding with what you actually spent. There's going to be other areas that are way off, and so how do we reconcile those? This is where you need to start thinking about your values. I don't like to go into scarcity mode and say cut everything out, only eat beans and rice, don't ever go anywhere fun, just cut your budget down to the bare minimum. I want to focus more on abundance and on values, okay? So our spending, as you've been tracking your spending, and we talked about it in the tracking video, but as you're tracking your spending, this is going to give you a picture of where your money goes, and then you can evaluate, am I spending money on what I value? Is what I'm spending money on getting me towards my goals? And so as you go through your expenses, especially as even the ones that align with the spending plan, but especially the ones that are way off, I want you to take a look at them and say, why did I think that in my plan it would be this much, but really I'm spending this much? Is it a value issue? I like to share the example because it's such a really good example. I'm sorry if you've heard it already, but I had a client who was spending a lot of money on eating out, and they didn't know that. And as they tracked their expenses, they saw how much they were spending on eating out, and she was able to sit down with her kids and say, look how much money we're spending eating out, and yet we're trying to save up for a family vacation. What do we value more? Do we value the convenience of eating out, or do we value a family vacation more? So they were able to have a good discussion about what their goals are and what they wanted, where they really wanted their money to go. This doesn't mean they didn't have to sacrifice. They decided to cut their eating out budget by 75%, which it was a big number. So it was good to cut that much out. And what did this require? It required that they plan ahead, they meal plan, that, sometimes it's inconvenient to run home and have to make dinner. When they wanted to celebrate or go out as a family, they did it in non-spending ways, non-food ways, right? They'd eat dinner at home and then maybe go out and get ice cream versus going out to eat dinner. And by doing this, they quickly were able to fund their vacation fund and go on a family vacation that they really were looking forward to. So all they did was evaluate their spending to see if it was in alignment with their values. So that's your next step with the spending plan, is to look at that sounded like I had an accent, the spending plan. Take a look at your spending plan and, take a look at your tracked expenses and just go through the ones that are very glaringly different than your supposed spending in your plan, and decide if that spending was simply because you were letting your money be in charge, or if it's a definite need to have that amount. For example, another client I had spent a lot of money on food. She discovered as she was tracking a lot of money on groceries, And as she evaluated her values and her spending, she realized that she does need to spend that much money on groceries. They valued eating very whole foods, non-GMO, gluten-free, very healthy, and it costs more money to eat that way, unfortunately. And so, she came to the conclusion that that needed to stay, that spending needed to stay. She adjusted her spending plan to make her grocery budget higher to match her actual spending. And then she had to cut somewhere else where it didn't matter as much to her. And it takes hard things. One client, he had to cut out housekeeping. And that was a hard thing for him because he was a single dad, and it was a convenience that he enjoyed. But he said, I can clean the house. My kids can help me clean the house. It's an expense that is less valued than some other goals and things we want to accomplish. So that's your next homework assignment, is we need to start cutting expenses and we need to start adjusting the spending plan. Okay, so in some categories on your spending plan, you're going to probably need to raise it or lower it based on your spending, because you're going to look at the spending and say, yeah, that is accurate. That's where I do want my money to go to those places. Like my food example, when she saw how much she was spending on food, her first thought was, I need to stop spending so much. But as she evaluated, she said, no, I need to adjust that in my spending plan, increase that budget item, and lower a different one. So that's going to happen. You're also going to have to lower your spending in other aspects when you realize that's not what you value. Like my client who had to cut down on eating out. They valued eating out, but they valued the family vacation more, enough to make some sacrifices to get to that goal. So think of each category as a piece of a bigger picture, and you have these goals and these desires. You want to get your money organized. You want to get in control of this money, right? Whatever your goals may be, that's pay off debt or go on vacation or save or prepare for retirement or buy a house, whatever your goals are, the goal has to be bigger than the inconvenience, right? One of my favorite quotes is, now I'm going to say it wrong, we don't make change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, because change is difficult. We all know that. And it's so psychological. When you talk about finances, you talk about so much psychology. And I'm not a psychologist, but change is hard, and you're likely not going to do it until not changing hurts more than changing. So that's your homework, is now you've got to reconcile. You've got to reconcile your tracked expenses, the actual numbers, with your proposed spending plan numbers. You've got to reconcile them. And you've got to take a hard look at your values, and you've got to take a hard look at some of the sacrifices that will need to be made. And keep in mind, it's not forever. Nothing is forever. Change is, they say the only constant thing is change. There's a cool quote about that, but you know what I'm saying is it's going to change. So don't feel like if you have to cut your eating out budget that it's going to be forever and you're going to be so sad you just can't do this and so you quit. What we're going to do right now is make them reconcile, because we've got to take control. We've got to take control. Once we take control, once we develop, save up an emergency fund, once we get some debt paid off, once we get our money working for us and our money compounding and growing, we're going to be able to add in all kinds of fun luxuries and non-necessities that are really going to bless your life and bless the lives of those around you. But initially, we've got to make those sacrifices. We've got to really scale, I don't want to say scale back, but we've really got to make the expenses match the plan. And both of those need to be less than your income. So, which we'll talk about in the next video. So that's my challenge to you. Is, again, I'm repeating it several times, but take a look at your spending plan and your tracked expenses, see where they're different, figure out why they're different, figure out which one needs to be adjusted, whether your spending plan needs to be adjusted up or down, or that spending needs to, go down, or maybe increase. From my experience, usually they need to decrease, but you never know. Maybe you need to increase spending on insurance, or like my food client. I know in my family, I know this sounds weird, but I needed to increase our grocery budget because I was keeping our grocery budget very, very low. And for a family of 6 people, growing kids, I needed to increase it. I needed to stop being so cheap on the food we were buying, and I needed to increase our grocery budget a little bit. So it can go either way. So that's my assignment for you. If you have questions, please contact me. Please let me know in the comments how it went for you, what questions you had, what you came across that was difficult. If there are things you just couldn't reconcile, let me know so we can talk about it, and we can share in your successes, and we can learn from all of you. And yeah, good luck. Contact me if you have questions, and I'll see you in the next video.